Welcome to the Beautiful Step Podcast,
where we
run,
stomp,
tiptoe,
and tango into the confusing
but beautiful
world of togetherness. We are your hosts, Kris
and Charity.
Now, let's go make our together even better. Hello, babe.
Hi, babe.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Hey, go ahead. What?
Today we're going to talk about us.
We are?
Yeah.
This is us. It's a TV show.
Yeah. Well, we're not as good as the TV show, but
I don't know.
this story might be of interest to people who actually want to know like who we are.
I think it's important because anytime I'm listening to someone, I kind of want to know their background.
Absolutely.
What qualifies them to like speak into my life.
Absolutely.
I think it's important. I mean, if a person lived just a charmed life and didn't have any like trials,
Yeah.
like what do they know?
Certainly not our story.
Not our story.
So we've been married 27 years.
Right.
We got married when we were very young. And
Yeah, too
didn't
young.
really know each other very much.
No.
Like
I mean, 6 months of knowing each other.
We kind of rushed into it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I had just turned 19 years old when we got
Dang.
married. And you were 21, almost 20.
That's too much. That's too.
Oh, if our kids did that today, no.
No.
But back then that was kind of more common. And
Yeah.
I was raised in like a church background. So
And I had just come into like Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's like that's kind of what you did.
back then that was what people did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got married really young, and I like to think of our life in seasons because it helps me. We've had a lot of different seasons, and it helps me kind of like, I don't know, give myself permission to have changed so much.
Right. I think it's a good idea. The season thing.
Yeah. I think it gives, I'm realizing with my life, like nothing stays the same in anyone's life.
Right.
And so it gives me some freedom to be able to go like, oh, the things that I learned in that season and the things that I did in that season actually made sense because I was working with what I knew and what I had.
You're going through
season.
something. It's a season. It's not your whole life.
Right. And so it also helps you free up and go like, if I need to go into a new season, like it's okay to leave this one, and I don't need
Let
to
this thing die.
Yeah, and I don't
Because
need
every
to-
season changes.
Yeah, and I don't need to actually cast judgment on my own seasons or other people's seasons. I just need to realize like everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got in that time period, and things change.
Absolutely.
In life.
And the thing I love about seasons, the idea is, like in the growing season, you get fruit.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's always something like when you look back on a season, you go, that was a season. First of all, if that was a season, it takes it from being like failure, success to what was imparted to me. Like what was the value I learned? What was that thing that changed my character or that whatever that shift that got me going in a different direction is something like that.
Yeah.
That's why I think I love the idea of season.
Yeah. And at this stage of my life, I have to think of things like that. Like I have to look back and go, that was that season, and this is the season.
Right. This is a fun season for us.
Super fun.
We've
been married 27 years.
Right.
And, we've been through a lot of different changes. So what would you call our first season?
Our first season?
Yeah. Age 19 for me.
19.
We moved into the mobile home
my mobile home I paid cash for, lady. I was balling.
You were balling, which is why I was like, dang, he's a baller. I got to marry him because I didn't know any other guys I knew.
Gold digger. Look at you.
That's so true.
Who has a house? I'm going to marry him. Dang, girl. You married me from my house?
Yeah. So your mobile home. So we moved into the mobile home.
Whatever.
I would call that stage young and dumb.
I agree 100% because we were young and I was really dumb, and turns out so were
I
you.
was too.
That was so fun.
Actually, I thought I knew a lot, but
you were a know it all.
Turns out I didn't know anything.
It was
And I was Miss Bossy Pants. Totally.
Because you knew everything.
Oh, totally. Yeah. In my very sheltered life. And then you did not have a sheltered life.
No, I came from craziness.
But you also didn't really know anything.
What are you talking about?
Well, you knew some stuff. I was
king of the world back then, baby.
We were pretty dumb. And we were
dumb.
We were fighting.
We didn't have any tools. I think that's the piece. Let's just interject here. If you haven't learned how to deal with people, or if you haven't done any work at all relationally. Like, how do I relate to my wife or any of that? Or raise my kids or any of that? You don't have tools.
Right.
That makes you dumb.
It
actually makes you dumb.
Everybody is dumb at the beginning.
Right. You have to work on this stuff.
I think this is key when we're talking. Like we've counseled a lot of young couples.
Sure.
It's like you're dumb in that stage, but you don't think you're dumb. You think you're smart.
The problem.
And the craziest thing is that everybody thinks their spouse is the dumb one, not them.
Of course.
And so
if I could get this guy
are particularly bad about this.
So there's a great, like, I know we're like rabbit trailing right now, but that's so key because a lot of times, I mean, I would say 90% of guys, guys are like secretly think their wife is dumb. And then it comes out when they first get married. And then it comes out later, or when they first sort of like go around, get around their girl, whatever. But it comes out later that women in general are so much smarter about things.
No,
certain
you're right.
things. Certain things. I mean, there's certain things that, but it's weird how that trashes a dynamic, a relationship dynamic. And that's one of the tools that I think that I learned early on was like, respect your wife. You know what I mean? Like, listen to her and respect your husband.
But you have
give
to
them
earn
that voice. You have to earn it. Yeah. But anyway,
we were young and dumb.
We were
fighting a lot because we were trying to actually take respect instead of give each other respect.
Right. So just to shout out to guys who are newly married out there, you're going to find out how smart your wife is. So quit treating her like she's dumb. What do you think of that?
Ooh, good advice.
Isn't that good advice? Okay. So we were young.
And women, same thing.
Same thing.
Or
exactly.
women to women. Like, I don't know, your spouse, your partner, your whatever. Don't treat them like they're stupid because they're probably going to end up being smarter than you.
Exactly. In so many areas, right?
We're all smarter in certain things.
Exactly. But you will learn to respect your spouse or your partner, whatever.
Yeah. If you stick around each other long enough.
Yeah. You'll be able to go, oh my goodness, this person's so worthy. I love it. Okay.
So
sorry. Young and dumb. Go.
So that was the first couple of years. We fought a lot. We were just trying to figure out who was in charge. It was this fight constantly. We fought a lot.
Oh my goodness.
But part of that is just we're confrontational people. Like there's nothing we refuse to talk about. We will talk about everything. We will discuss motives about everything. And so we learned some tactics. And I think in this podcast.
I think we could say young, dumb, and contending.
Oh, totally contending.
Because you want someone that you can contend with.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I fought with you.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I mean, if I didn't fight with you, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how strong you are. I wouldn't know how smart you are. I wouldn't know anything about myself.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because you kept putting it back on me and like lifting up this mirror and be like, here's how you're being. You know what I mean? Like we would fight.
Yeah, we fought a lot.
And I mean, that's okay. So just quickly on that contention thing, I think that's a really good idea because everybody wants someone where they go, I think I'm at my match here.
Oh, totally.
This is a challenge.
It's that whole concept of like, you don't want necessarily like a helper. You want a partner and you want somebody who's as badass as you are.
Right. And you want to fight those things out and you want to have earned it, that kind of thing. What was it like? There's a biblical story about like Jacob, was it? Contended with God.
Yeah.
And then he was named Israel. Like it was like, that's where he had his rite of passage.
Yeah.
That's that same exact thing.
So a healthy marriage is going to have some level of contention, but we had it a lot.
It was
at
a
the
lot.
beginning. It was a lot. We were vying for
it. Was too much.
So, but that was young and dumb. We were young and dumb.
Yeah.
So we, though, at the time, kind of were transitioning to our next season. We had people living with us at the trailer. Different people would move into the house for a little while.
Yeah.
But we ended up buying a huge home in the middle of Anchorage's Ghetto because we felt like we wanted to help kids in that neighborhood. And that started because we were actually going there.
When we first got married, we were going into that neighborhood.
Right. from pretty far across town to actually help kids we were helping start this like feeding program at the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
So we were working out there.
And while we were working out there, we were like, you know what? We could live here.
Yeah, well, we actually were more convicted about it than that. We were like, if Jesus would live here, he would live in this community.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean we were all conviction. So we were like, we're going to buy.
From the heart, baby.
Yeah. We're going to buy the 8-bedroom house in the middle of the ghetto.
I thought it was 10.
No, it was 8 bedrooms.
It was 8 bedrooms?
It's since been converted to 13 bedrooms, go figure.
What?
But it was 8 when we bought it.
Okay.
But it was the
huge.
Neighborhood brothel.
House of ill repute.
It was the neighborhood prostitution house, and it had long since actually gone out of business.
Is that a prostitution house?
It had gone out of business, but it still had the sign on the door. Do you remember the name of the house?
Evil Evelyn.
It even had we took the sign down. I mean, yeah.
We probably did some holy oil or something.
Dude, the holy. But the craziest part is, like, we could holy oil that stuff all day long, but we bought all the furniture in the house.
That's so nasty. Oh my, what? Are you kidding me?
We did it because we were so broke, and like, how are you going to possibly furnish an 8-bedroom house? And they had all this rad antique furniture.
We did it because we were young and dumb.
And broke.
So
that's part of our young dumb. We bought the house.
And we slept on the mattresses. Come on.
Hey, you're the one that moved me in. Okay, so we moved in. I was 21 at the time. And this kind of transitioned us into our next stage, which, what would you call that stage?
I would call it foundation, right? So there's this foundation, but I'd go a little further than that and call it a foundation of sacrifice.
Yeah,
because we were giving. Like,
we bought that house actually to move in people.
It was 8 bedrooms. We wanted to help kids. We needed to start something.
Yeah, I was pregnant with our son Cole at the time, but didn't know it. We moved into the house, and it was just a couple of weeks after we moved, and we were remodeling the house.
Right.
Because you were a furniture builder when I married you.
I could fix anything.
You still can fix anything.
That's right.
And I was working at an oil drilling company.
I wish you didn't know that I could fix anything. Then I wouldn't have to do all this stuff around here. You were working at oil drilling company. We moved. Okay.
Yeah. So I was doing, like, business clerical stuff, and you were working as a carpenter, and we moved in. And then a couple of weeks later, we were remodeling, and a knock on our door came. And when I opened the door, there was a really tall kid who was like 16 with a giant afro. He had the
beautiful,
most awesome hair I've ever seen.
I wish to this day
awesome hair.
I had that hair.
Yeah, he doesn't have it anymore, but back in the day it was banging.
It was banging.
So he stood on the doorstep, and he said that a friend of ours had told him to come there because it was a safe home to be in, and he was down the street living, and it was not a safe environment, and he was in foster care. And so he said, do you think that I could stay with you guys? But actually went further than that. He sat down at our table, and within an hour of being there said, do you think you guys would adopt me?
Oh, dude was just looking for a family. He was just looking he was just really looking for connection and love and safety.
And he had a soft heart.
Stability.
I mean, he was just like,
he
was really in need. And so we were like, well, we don't know about adoption. I mean, here I am, only 5 years older than him. But we were like, and we know nothing about foster care, but you can move in tonight. And so he just moved. I mean, he went and grabbed his little bag of stuff, which he only had a couple of pieces of clothes, and moved in. And then within a couple of weeks, his friends moved in.
Yeah, it happened really fast to where we started filling up those rooms.
Yeah. And it wasn't just kids in foster care that were staying at the local teen shelter who were moving in, but it was actually some friends of ours, my brother, and then some other friends of ours that wanted.
Chris Montine came out.
Yeah. Some other friends that wanted to do.
They kind of wanted in on the action. They were like, hey, we're doing this
stuff
thing.
Like that.
We're helping these kids.
They moved in too.
They got these terrible stories. We need to help, and quite honestly, 2 people can't do that. I mean, we were young and dumb, but not dumb enough to think that we could just have all these foster kids and not need any help.
It was intense.
It was
because
really
they were coming out of addiction or still in addiction, some of them.
Right.
They were coming out of lifestyles
Abuse.
that were, and it was actually, I remember being told by the Office of Children's Services that we weren't allowed to leave because we had our son Cole shortly after.
He was a little baby.
Yeah, we had him when all those people were living with us, and then our son Noah was born 13 months later.
Born in the hood.
Yeah,
that's their roots, baby.
And I mean, it was so intense living in that home. At one point, it was me and 9 guys living in the home, and then our own children. And at one point it was like, well, you can't really leave your infants in the same room alone with some of the people that are living in your home because of their backgrounds. And I
remember that.
And it was hard because there was nothing against the people that were living with us. We loved them, and they had been
broken.
They had been abused. And so you couldn't, we just didn't want to set them up for failure. But it caused this interesting dynamic. Like, here we are with little tiny babies and carrying them from room to room, and all these people living with us, cooking and cleaning. And it was a lot.
How many people do you think came through?
I think we had 19. I think I counted it once. We had 19 people that lived with us for over at least 3 months.
I had a friend or a couple friends that came through.
Oh, you had a friend. Oh, the worst one was you had a friend who got out of rehab and got out of jail, and you wanted him to have a safe place. And so you brought him in, and he lived with us for a couple of months, maybe 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
But then one morning,
I woke up and everything on the west side of the house, no, the east side of the house was gone.
He had literally taken
all my
carloads of everything for your living, all your woodworking equipment, and everything was gone. He had pawned it all in the middle of the night.
Well, I remember a couple of days before that, he was like, yeah, I'm dating this girl and she's really athletic and she's got a lot of cash. And I was like, are they ones? And she's really athletic?
Which was the case. And we loved her, actually. We met her and hung out with her, but it was like, he was definitely in a lifestyle where it brought some risk into our house.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But he ended up then actually ripping us off. And that was a really hard season.
Yeah.
So we had Noah, we had Cole, and then 13 months later, we had our son, Noah. And we had all these foster kids.
Yeah.
Some of them young, most of them older teenagers.
All these people live in our house, going, just crazy.
It was really hard. During that time, though, you actually had become a youth pastor at the local church because we knew we wanted to stay within that community, and we really had a heart for at-risk youth. And so you started youth pastoring there, and you were also like the musician guy.
Yeah, the music leader, worship guy.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we were building like this.
And I learned how to play guitar by playing Back in Black.
Oh, when I met you,
Jump in the Fire.
There's not any butt rock song you did not know how to play.
Well, Metallica's not really butt rock. I mean, they still, now, I don't know. They did sell out after Kill 'Em All. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
You were the musician.
I was the musician.
But remember, I, big and pregnant, would play the drums on Sunday mornings.
It was so cute.
But I would have to put a blanket over my lap so that I wouldn't flash everybody.
I'm like, just set the snare on her belly. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
So we were having babies. We were living this life. And then our son Noah, actually, he was born, and that was a hard time because
I was so emotional.
He was born 13 months after our son
Most
Cole.
Beautiful baby in the world.
Oh, this hair.
Oh, the hair.
Awesome. But he was born, and he was healthy, except for he had a stroke the day we brought him home. Remember?
Oh, that was so hard.
And coughing up blood, and it turned out that he had been born with cerebral palsy, and we didn't know. Yeah. Like a mild case. You wouldn't know now, but it was bad. And so they wanted to do brain surgery.
Well, you could say you wouldn't know now, but I mean, he would definitely talk about you can tell.
He still has battles to fight.
Absolutely.
And when he was little, that was hard because it was like
his right side was always atrophied.
Yeah, there was therapy, there was all these things, but the biggest thing is when he was an infant like that, they wanted to do brain surgery. We ended up, remember, we had to go to the local bank because we had no money. Yep. I mean, we literally always were operating with $15 in our bank account,
and we did it.
We got
you know what kept us?
What?
Love.
Love in the food shelf pantry, probably at the church, feeding all those kids.
We had friends.
Yeah, we had lots of friends. It was awesome, actually. Which is why you call it like a foundational sacrifice. It was like our door was open to the community. People would come if they were hungry, if they were cold, if they were that was the life.
I remember taking a guy out of a snowbank, bringing him into our living room and giving him a fire. Yeah, and giving him some turkey.
And socks.
Yep,
because he was freezing.
Okay, keep going.
So anyway,
no one needed
brain surgery. We had no money, so we ended up going to the local credit union and getting a signature line of credit to be able to take him to the Children's Hospital in Seattle, which actually ended up kind of saving his.
Absolutely saved his whole situation.
Growing up, because they didn't end up needing to do brain.
No brain shunt, no surgery, no anything. They were just like, look, and I think that's where we discovered he had a stroke because they were like, look, he just has a part on his brain that has died because of the stroke. Yeah. So it has palsied. And that's where we realized, he's got cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
That's what that is. It's brain death in a so it
regrew
area.
Though. Yeah. It regrew.
And it regrew and
it's been amazing.
Healthy, happy, beautiful kid.
But it was years of therapy and those kind of things, and which added another dynamic to our life. Like, okay, we've endured 2 kids back to back and all these people living with us and then medical issues. And actually during the time then we got pregnant with Olivia 24 months later. Yeah. She was actually born 24 months later. we kind of hit this really hard time. It started.
You were just bad at pregnancy. Okay, let's just say that right out front.
Oh, for sure.
With Cole, it was so hard. It was like 50 days in the hospital. It felt like Noah. Your pregnancy itself was super hard. Olivia, same thing. Like you had. I ended up having a
tumor and all this other stuff.
Man,
so
it was so hard.
It was really hard. But the crazy thing is this whole season in that house was only 4 years long. 4 years. We lived, 19 people living with us for longer than 3 months at a time.
But it had the intensity of like 4 lifetimes.
It totally did. Can you imagine trying to be parents and mentors to all these people? And then
good thing we were young and dumb.
So we had our daughter Olivia, but by then our grace for that season was over. We were so burned out. We were like beyond, the savior complex had been kicked down to the curb.
You're absolutely, yeah. We stopped saving the world a long time ago. But I would say that this brings back how you started, the whole idea of seasons.
Yeah.
Because when you are going, and this is just, I think, one of the heaviest, deepest things I live by.
Yeah.
Is when you have the grace to do something.
Yeah.
You will do it. Like, it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really powerful thing. And when you don't, you better stop.
And we knew, it was like we went from loving that community, loving everything about it, even though it was really high violence and all that kind of stuff, and having all those people with us, to being like, we can no longer actually do this. We've got 3 kids under the age of 4.
Right.
We've got 2 foster sons that are going to come with us no matter what. All the other foster kids had left our home, returned back to their parents.
The season was ending.
It was ending, and we were like, we've got to get out of here. And it was actually kind of cool because at that point,
and it wasn't a thing that, like, if we would have had the grace to do it, we'd have been doing it today.
Yeah, but it was just over. It was like over. We can't do this anymore. Well, so we were wondering how we were going to get rid of that house, because who wants to buy the old like prostitute house in the middle of the ghetto?
Well, it's the best house in the worst neighborhood.
Yeah.
Which any real estate guy is going to be like, never do that. That is the worst thing you can do.
And we had put a bunch of money, what money we had, remodeling and stuff like that to house all those people.
Right.
So we were like, we're never going to be able to get out of this house.
Nope.
Well, then a really cool kind of miracle happened, because I was, recovering from having Olivia and sitting in the middle of the living room, and there was a knock on the door late at night, and a guy walks up and he says, he had a van full of people. It was like his family and another family, and they said, we feel like we're supposed to live in this neighborhood, and we want to know if you'll sell us your house and we'll pay anything you're asking.
That's a verifiable, like, what?
And like, we were miracle. Like, I remember I called you, and this is before cell phones really, but I called you, I think, and you were at the church, and I was like, you got to come over, because you just were a block away. Like, you got to come over and talk to these people. And right there in that living room, we decided on the price. We decided on when to move. We didn't even use a realtor, and they just bought the house.
That was the coolest verification of an ending season I think we've had.
God was totally bailing us out.
Yeah, we were like bawling.
Yeah, it was so cool. So we decided, you know what? Let's take these 3 little kids, ages like...
Well, we wanted to do that
4,
too.
3, and not even that. 3, 2, and infant.
Oh, that was...
to a better area of town. And then we'll bring our 2 foster sons that are older that we're going to keep for a long time. Like, they're going to be with us forever. But then, so we moved them all. We bought a house in a decent neighborhood, and we were like, we're going to just live and be normal people. And so I was working as a stockbroker at the time, not making hardly any money.
Right.
You had a contracting company.
Right.
After you left the church, you started a contracting company, because that's what you do.
Right. And Jesse,
our oldest son, came with us.
Yeah. Our oldest non-biological son.
Right.
Yeah. And he learned the trade, and he's grateful for that learning. He's grateful for the trade.
His wife's grateful he knows all that stuff.
But he's not grateful for my
putting up with you all those years.
Yeah. I was in what can you say? I was in a bad space.
You were in a bad space.
I was in a really
it was hard. That burnout season was hard.
We were tired, and I was crotchety. What do you call it? Crotchety?
Crotchety, yeah. That's an understatement. Mm-hmm.
I was irritable. What do you call it? Excitable?
All those words work.
Oh, yeah. He tells a story of me just tearing all of the tools out of the van because it was a mess, and they're all over the street. And he's like kind of looking at me and I'm kind of looking at him. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I did lose it, didn't I? Like, oh no.
It was hard. You were providing for a lot of people. Like it was still a hard life. We still had 3 kids under the age of 4. We were still like, and then one of our other foster sons.
Let's just give a shout out to anybody who has 3 kids under the age of 4. We love you. Mm-hmm. You're amazing.
This too
you can
shall
do
pass.
it. You got it. Right?
So we were doing
so
that.
Hard.
We were living on the, in a decent neighborhood. We were living life. And so what would you call this kind of converged into the next season? What would you call that season?
I don't know. What would you call it?
I would say it was a season of kind of proving ourselves.
I like it.
Like we were.
It was okay. I would say it was a test though, because when we start telling these stories, it was like a test. I would say test to prove or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Tested to prove.
We were just trying to figure out who we were and trying to develop some guidelines for our lives. This was a hard season because it's like the stress of owning a business and having all those kids and then just living life. And our kids were really active. They were doing every sport and all that other kind of stuff.
And I was super dad. Come on, give me some props.
Oh, absolutely. Skateboard ramps and
oh man, I brought a little mini bus and put like 2 12s in it and a TV and like brought all their homies down to Alaska.
You became the snowboard dad and the everything dad.
And we sponsored a bunch of events.
Basketball teams and all that other stuff. So we were like the parents who did the stuff. And our oldest son, Jesse, ended up going into the Navy. And so he was there for 6 years. So then we just had at home.
But during that time, let me just say this. The reason why I say it was a testing time is because like I remember I started this other business. Oh, that was such a dumb
Why are you reminding me of this?
I'm so sorry. I started this
This actually almost ended our marriage.
This is why I think it's a testing season.
Yeah.
Because we were like, again, what are we made of? What are we committed to? Are we committed to each other?
Well, we were still doing that savior complex thing, unfortunately.
Right.
And so when a friend of yours, an old family friend that you really didn't even hang out with much, really wanted to start a roofing company.
I hung out with his brother more than him.
Yeah. Really wanted to start a roofing company, but didn't have the credit and stuff to get the bonding and all the other stuff.
And I thought he was bouncing back, like, yeah.
Well, you were like, he's awesome. He's
an amazing roofer.
Yeah. So despite better judgment, you signed paperwork to be his partner so that he could get the bond and all that other stuff, and so that they could use your information to get all that stuff.
And not only that, but he's charging stuff on all my accounts. Anyway, long story short, we ended up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it was so bad.
So
he ended up
dying
because he was a drug addict. We didn't find out till later, and ended up binging, leaving a bunch of jobs open. But we have found out later that basically in our names had embezzled over $400,000 from the IRS because he hadn't paid payroll taxes that whole time, even though the CPA had given him the payroll tax stuff and vendor accounts and everything. Basically, he stole all the money that was made in the business.
He was really good at it too.
Yeah.
Because all of the stuff was kind of adding up with withdrawals.
We actually didn't find out until we got a notice from the IRS saying they were going to actually
garnish and my dividend.
And we were like, what's happening? So then we started, uncovering what had happened. And it was a hard thing because, I don't think I've ever in my life wanted to kill someone more. I wanted to kill you for getting us into that situation because we had 3 little kids and we
needed the money.
We needed the money. Our home.
You were doing good though. You were balling.
I was home. No, I was making no money as a stockbroker.
I was stockbroker. Yeah, that's right. Never mind.
Our home was being liened and we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And because I was in the finance industry, I couldn't just declare bankruptcy or anything. So our only choice, and the choice that we felt like had the most integrity since we had signed on the paperwork to help him start this business, was that we would actually figure out how to get out of this and pay back the people he owed because he died. So we were like, okay, we're going to have to get this together.
And that's what I did.
And so for the next probably 4 or 5 years, we got the accounts down to what was manageable with the vendors and with the IRS. And then we said, okay, put us on payment plans. And for the next 4 to 5 years, we paid back.
I beat the street for work.
It ended up being like $60,000, I think, that we paid back. But that was money we did not have.
Yeah.
We did not have it.
Yeah. I made a few deals and, did some hustles and stuff. But yeah, that was a lot of money.
But that season almost ended our marriage because I couldn't believe.
That was a testing time.
Yeah. It was really, really hard on it and very stressful because we were already running our other company and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So then we decided the market was booming. The housing market was booming. And we were our friends, we had some friends who lived in this huge kind of mansion of a house. Like,
why do you keep buying big houses?
5,000. The other one wasn't big, but I guess
Mountain. Well, the Mountain View one was 8 bedrooms.
You're right.
And then we went to like a standard poodle. And it was great. It was great. It was like American Dream or whatever. We should have stayed there.
We should have stayed
somehow
there.
you talked me into getting this gigantic.
It's because I was like, hey, I was working at Wells Fargo at the time, and we had some friends who were being foreclosed on, and because they were getting divorced.
Right.
And they owned this big house, and I was like, we can buy it from them so they don't go into foreclosure, and then we'll be able to kind of do the cosmetic things to revamp it and flip it, and it's worth $1 million.
And at that point, anybody could get a loan.
Yeah. So we
During
were like,
craziness.
We were like, let's do it. We're going to make some money on this thing. We thought we were like catching, what do you call it?
Caught a fat hog.
Yeah, we thought we caught a fat hog. Well, as soon as we bought the house in 2007, and
all you have to do is say 07, 08, 08.
And the market crashed in 2008. And so the house that we had paid all this money for, $500,000 for, was still only worth $500,000, but we had to put like $200,000 in it to actually
Brutal.
Get it to be sellable. So that took us 7 years to do that.
Man.
And 7 years. But the cool thing is we raised our kids in this 7 years.
They loved that house.
Oh,
we raced motocross bikes and stuff like around it.
They had skateboard ramps.
Awesome.
They had trampoline. They had like everything. And it was a party house because it was huge. And so like all our friends' parties were there. And like it was the convening house, which was super fun. But that was also exhausting.
It was exhausting.
And at the time we were like, we were doing okay. Like we always loved each other. And more importantly, I think we always really liked each other. Like there was times when we stopped liking each other little bits of time, but for the most part, we've always really liked each other.
Yeah. We've been attracted to each other.
Yeah.
I think I've always, you've never been really contemptuous of me. Like, why is this guy just sitting on the couch all day long and watching?
Well, it helps that you've not done that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, same with you, you're absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Have been since the very first day I met you. You just get prettier with time.
Not true.
It's
but I appreciate you
true.
saying so.
And you are a person I contend with.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And you're
like
still,
you're no pushover.
You're still that badass that I married.
I love it.
So but this was a hard season too, because it's like a bunch of things happened. You had the contracting company.
Right.
And then it was like, we got an offer to have a State Farm office and we decided to go for it. So I opened the State Farm office, and then it was like this thing of like, before, when you had just the contracting company and I was working as a stockbroker, I tried to do your books and like
you tried to work with me.
Stuff.
I remember you were calling customers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh. And then we decided to save our marriage. I would no longer work for you.
That saved our marriage. I remember the dinner we went out to, and I let you off the hook, so to speak. I was like, listen.
We had a come to Jesus moment where it was like, we're not going to make it if I have to answer to you. Well, then the same.
You didn't say that. I actually, don't you remember?
No,
I was
did.
like, it was a thing where, because that's to your credit, because you were like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for him. I'm going to help him and everything. And I could see that you were really trying. Like, you were really trying. And I remember going like, you know what? This is killing her. This is killing us. We're not going to make it, dude.
We're not. Yeah. So you let me off the hook. But then it shifted. Then reverse.
Yeah. You get a State Farm.
I got
office.
a State Farm office, and then it was like we were pouring everything we had to remodel the place, to hire employees, to set it up, to all that stuff. And so you did the exact same thing. You said, I can come help you, and like you got your insurance licenses.
It's a great business model. Like, let's shut down the contracting thing. Let's go.
Because that was breaking your body. And like all that.
So I got all my licenses and everything, and went down there and went to work for my wife.
Which also did not work.
It's not a good
idea. It's not a good idea.
I think we work well together.
We work well together.
But we don't work well for each other.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
I would say beware of that if anyone's listening.
Yeah. So that season, we were starting a new business. The kids were at the height of like busyness. I mean, they were like so busy.
What's it like? 3 different schools, 3 different kids?
Yes, 3 different schools. Our daughter Olivia was in choir and all these other things, like a traveling choir, and the boys were doing sports and competing, and skiing and snowboarding, and they were all
traveling.
Yeah, it was just a lot. But we were doing that time of like testing and proving.
Yeah.
Well, then the kids started to get to the point where they were like older.
Right.
Like, teenagers. Cole was about to leave the house, go off to college or whatever. And we were like, you know what? We really don't want to be in this gigantic house. And the market had gone up enough. It was 7 years later where we were like, let's get out of this house.
We can get out of it. Or let's squeak out of here.
So we ended up being able to sell the house. We didn't make any money. In fact, we lost the money we put into it, but we at least got out of
all of it. But I mean,
we lost most of it.
Did we?
I think, yeah.
You do
another hard thing.
You do the books around here. You would know that was really hard.
But one of the
but we got out of it.
We did. But what had happened at the end of that? That house had been awesome because not just Mountain View, but actually people were living with us in that house too.
Oh yeah,
different families were living with us.
Always had that going on.
Yeah, always.
Someone shows up on our doorstep right now, we'll take you in. Go ahead. Just do it.
I dare you.
Test us.
Actually, any more these days, I'd probably be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Can
sorry.
I get you a hotel room? But
me rent you an Airbnb.
Yeah. So, but what had happened is actually you were like, we were doing the State Farm. You didn't want to work for me. We were kind of, so you had started.
No, it was you didn't want me to work for you.
Okay. However you say it, you had ended up teaching at a at-risk youth program.
Yeah. Again, back to the kids, man.
Yep.
I couldn't stay away. I love these.
Yep.
I love these, edgy. Is it edgy on the edge? Vulnerable? What do you call them? What do you call kids in this
at
state?
risk?
At risk.
Yeah.
At-risk youth. I love at-risk youth. Oh, that's cool.
So you were teaching at that, and you were also working kind of part-time at the church. You were youth pastoring. You were volunteering, doing a lot of that for a long time.
Sure.
Which was kind of something that also followed us through. And then during that time, we actually then we kind of started a little nonprofit that was for homeless moms and kids.
Right.
And then ended up being a foster care.
It was just
nonprofit.
a group of people putting $100 each in a month or something. And it turned into a really rad program.
Which is now like a huge nonprofit in Alaska.
How many cities are you in?
6 now.
Six cities?
Yeah, in Alaska.
Stud.
Doing
So awesome.
foster care stuff and adoption stuff and all sorts of support.
Aren't you glad I helped you get that off the ground, babe?
Yes.
I was there for
But I'm
you.
glad you didn't work for me.
That's true. We did it together.
Yes. So we started that at the same time. But then it was like you were really feeling like you wanted to actually start a church.
No.
You weren't?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yes. I think I wanted to start a church because it was like marrying you.
Yeah.
We had to go to church.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like we had to go to church, and I'm like, I'll just be totally honest. I'm like a lot of people that I don't like going to church. But I have beliefs and on, and I wanted to start something that was real and raw.
Yeah.
And brought joy.
And attracted the people that didn't like going to church.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is like 90% of the people who are church planters have the same exact idea. So I didn't realize how cliche that was. And I didn't realize like, I guess, we are going to start a church. And so we ended up starting a church.
In downtown Anchorage because you wanted to go somewhere that was like where people...
There was nothing going on church-wise down there. And we figured if we open the doors, people will show up.
And you were a really good preacher. Like you were a good orator.
Babe. You think so?
You still are.
Oh.
Anyway, so
I don't preach though.
No, but you're a good orator. And
you're
a good writer.
Okay. I like
and you're good at leading. We're good at throwing parties. We're good at leading people.
Yeah, I mean, we can get people in a room.
Well, which happened, right? So we sold the house,
right.
The huge house, and we bought a little house downtown because we always like to live wherever we're going to be working.
Yes.
And we opened up the church, and it went. I mean, the first day was like 150 people,
and then I sat everybody down, and I was like, okay, because we had a core team of people that were helping, and I sat down. I was like, okay, so that was emotional, that was cool, it was all hype. Just prepare yourself emotionally for that to never happen again, right? And then it just kept growing. It was cool. It was fun.
It was super cool. So we did that for 7 years. Poured everything we had, our heart, soul into it, and our kids at that time all became adults.
Yeah,
like Cole went to college in Australia. Jesse came back from the Navy, married a wonderful woman that we love, and gave us 2 grandbabies that we adore.
She's the most amazing person
she is
on the planet.
And then, we can't say that because we have lots of kids.
I can say that about each individual child.
That's true.
That they are the most amazing people. But Crystal truly is special.
She was a huge blessing to the family. So they helped us start the church. And then our oldest son, Cole, went off to Australia to go to college and then graduated from college. And then our youngest son, actually, Noah, ended up going to college in California and then graduated from there. And then our daughter, Olivia, she went to college in San Francisco and Boston. And so she's not quite graduated yet, but she's at the age. So we've got empty nest thing going on.
We have time to do this.
And we were like, we're going to do the church thing. And so we poured for 7 years. We poured our heart and soul into doing that.
Right.
And
I would have never tried to do something like that unless I was like 40 and pretty much empty nest.
What would you call that season?
I think that season was almost like an expression of everything that we learned. Like there was
until that point.
Yeah, there was like
before.
This. All of the other one feel like this, like pulling back of the slingshot. Mm-hmm. And for me, because we're kind of fresh out of that season, it was like the letting go of the slingshot and like, okay, here's what we're made of, world, and here's what we know. You know what I mean? And that's so it feels to me like that was an expression of all the sort of hard work and hard knocks that we went through up till age, 42. We planted that church at 42.
So, season of expression for us was that church season. Yeah. So poured our heart and soul into that. You did an amazing job, built this incredible team. And then some things started to happen in me.
Yeah.
That were really disturbing in the sense that like in the sense that my own kind of immediate family had some stuff. And it was like my parents got divorced and my whole world that I had known.
Which was a game changer. Come on, let me just say that was a big deal because your dad is an important guy. I mean,
and my mom
still is.
But they were. You're saying they're important in like the church world.
Community, and so it was devastating in many ways.
Yeah, so it was like kind of this whole thing where I really started to evaluate what I believed about church, having grown up in it, been a pastor's kid my whole life. Even my grandfather's a pastor. Right. Like I really started to evaluate church, and I started to evaluate my own life, and I started and the expression of my own kids, and it was like I don't know that I can be a part of this right now. And
I would say, okay, I think that's fair that you're saying that. Mm-hmm. But I also would add, I think, yes, that's a fair statement, right? But I think you're also saying if church, professional Christianity turns out like this,
like everyone I knew in the game,
and not only that, but my
own family,
parents, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right. I'm not going to.
So that's a little more pointed.
But we're not going to keep, you and I are not going to keep going down this path if this is where the path leads.
Right. And you were like, I'm getting off.
Which is where the path leads for almost everybody I knew. And I knew a lot of people in that field. And so
I think that's fair. There's a large majority of people in your life that have train wrecked.
Yeah. Well,
professional Christians
went into a different season.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, you're right. It's just going into a different season. I love that. Thank you for.
But it didn't.
You're so right.
It didn't. It was like I don't want to stay in this season forever. I actually need to get off right here. And so this caused a real contention between
when you
us.
have the grace to do something, you'll do it and it'll be lights out. But when you
it'll be life giving. It'll feel like you're alive.
But when you don't have the grace to do it. Don't do what so many different people do, and they just keep pretending like they do and manufacturing energy, and then they turn into really strange people.
Well, they start hiding everything. You start becoming a person not of integrity.
Exactly.
And we have always been people of integrity. Like we do what we say we're going to do, and our life lines up. And so when we knew that my life,
right,
the way I felt did not line up with the church we led and all of these things,
right.
It was like, I can't keep doing this, and you can't really keep pastoring if your wife is like, I'm out.
That job, it takes, you know what I mean? It takes a pastor's wife to do it well.
Well,
that institution.
It takes support from your spouse or your partner, and honestly, I wasn't supportive anymore of it.
I appreciate that.
And so
I think you're right. You were tapping your foot. I could tell you're worn out. I was, at that point, I feel like, yeah. And there were there's so many things.
There's so many things, but your mom died.
My mom died, which is, if anyone has had their mom die, it's unexplainable what happens in your heart.
Because your dad had already died. So this was the last parent.
Right. And so it really is unexplainable what happens inside of you when you do that, especially if you have a relationship like my mom and I did. We had a checkered sort of way of relating all the way through like high school, and then even into the early years of our marriage, my mom and I were pretty distant. But over the last, what would you say, 6 or 7 years, probably 6 or 7 years, my mom and I, like, I finally am like, oh my goodness, my mom actually really respects me, loves me. I understand her better. We were having these crazy conversations. I mean, it was just, I was going to visit her all the time. Like, we were buddies.
Yeah.
And anyway, all of that to say, when she died, it really did, like a buddy of mine, Nathan Rogers, talks about this idea, like you have the shattered glass when someone dies, and then it all falls to the ground. And you have all these pieces of your life where that person was connected to, right? And then you get to take all of those pieces and you put them back together.
Yeah.
And you can leave some pieces out.
Yeah.
You know, you can, and
you get to decide.
And what you're doing is you're building the new mosaic of your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get to decide to do that. Right. And so it really was like a hard 2.0 restart for whatever was going on in my heart and mind. And I'm like, my wife's not in.
Well, this was all happening at the same time. COVID hit. Your mom died.
Right.
I was out.
And so I'm taking this inventory of like, what do I do? You know, and then not only
fake it till you make it.
But we had known this for a while. So a year earlier, we had gone to the elders and said, hey, we're not going to make it. Like, we're done. And so we started grooming a guy, and I love him, but it just didn't work out with him. Like, he just couldn't do it. And so all of that.
He didn't want to do it, actually.
He didn't want it. Right.
So there was.
I mean, he did, but then he didn't.
But then COVID was happening. So we were like, you know what?
All of this stuff.
Let's just be people. Let's continue to be people of integrity and realize that this is a season.
Yeah.
The church we were leading was not going to go on forever in the same way that it had been. And honestly, churches that do go on forever in the same way that they've been are kind of death traps, in my opinion.
Broken.
But,
and then if you bring in a new pastor, totally just kind of shocks, and it turns into his church anyway. So we decided to shut the thing down.
Because COVID was
there. We couldn't meet anyways. So we were like, you know what? Let's shut it down. We gave away all of the assets.
Yep. But can I just interject something? There was another component that we haven't brought up. We had started schooling at different schools. You and I had gone back to school.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years before.
Right.
And I had started my doctorate in law, and you had started your writing and religions degree at Harvard.
Right.
And so it was like we were corresponding school. But what this education piece did for us is that it kind of was opening our eyes to a different way of thinking and a different knowledge base.
Yeah.
Which was also throwing big wrenches into I'll just speak for myself. It was throwing big wrenches into what I had been taught, what I knew, and this was being added to kind of the deterioration of the structure of how I had been raised.
Right. I think, you wouldn't have survived in churchianity. Yeah. That whole system. We wouldn't have survived.
No.
We weren't going to make it.
Well, and I think for me, to be completely honest, I really felt like I could no longer. I'm a strong woman.
Oh my goodness!
You married a feminist at her core.
I love it.
And I could no longer be a part of something that I felt like, at its base, perpetuated the oppression of women, or minority groups, or marginalized groups, and then also the oppression of LGBTQ people, and didn't include them. And all of these things were like.
And I'm like, okay, so now we got to redo the handbook. Okay, so
yeah, the wife's gone off the rails, and it was really true to the core. Like, because again, back to like, I'm not going to be a part of something that I believe is doing harm, or like is like at least not standing up for the. I've been fighting for vulnerable people my whole life. I wasn't going to like be a part of something that wasn't going to fight for vulnerable people.
I love it. That's so true.
So we were at this like.
Yeah, we were at.
Something's got to be done.
I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, it was.
I made a real like. It was a true shift for me, and you were stuck, kind of holding the bag. Like, oh my goodness, my wife is kind of in this last year really changed.
Yes,
and I wasn't different with you and me. No. It was just like.
We just started having these, what would you call, spirited discussions about all of these issues, and it was like, you know what, this isn't. I mean, we need to go and work all these things out. Yeah, and this is and again, it's not a good or bad. It's just a season. Yeah, and it's a time to do that. Yeah, and like I'm like, Man, this is so in so many ways what we're doing right now without the weight of, a church or
without the weight of leading people
people or carrying people. Mm-hmm. It's just the season that we're in now. What would you call it now?
Joy.
Really?
Joy and happiness and lightheartedness.
I think there's that, but I think there's a discovery phase. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
There's this like, I think there's a wisdom phase that's like we're walking into.
We're just happy
because I'm studying a ton.
We're both still in school, and it's like we're loving that. We're loving living in kind of different places. We're all over the place right now.
Yeah.
We're loving our children becoming even more established in their lives. And Cole got married and to an amazing woman, Vanessa.
And his career has exploded.
And our son Noah's like started his life and his career in Seattle.
He has a
doing
dream
awesome
job out in Seattle.
Our daughter's finishing graphic design school and becoming a tattoo artist. And she came out as gay, which we were really like, we always knew that. Of course. But it was like when it happened, it was another one of those things where it's like, if we have to choose,
right?
If we have to choose like between somehow in any way alienating our daughter or saying that we don't approve of her, if that's going to be the choice,
it's not even a choice.
It's not even a choice. I'm going to choose my daughter and her happiness and all of that stuff, and I'm going to be supportive of her instead of like what anyone thinks of me in any other realm.
100%.
So that was another like kind of stamp on the old like we're gonna shift here. We're gonna go into a new season.
And that was when we're talking about going into a new season, and we're talking about coming out of old seasons and systems.
Yeah.
So I think that was the idea for me, was the system that I've even created or been a part of really isn't conducive. Like I tell people, I mean, I think I shut down the church because it was getting in my way of my relationship with God. I mean, you know what I mean?
And like, with people.
And with people. I would say this is just for anybody out there that's a pastor or whatever, I don't know, or in ministry.
Yeah.
I would say since I got out of professional Christianity, across the board, no question, my relationships are better.
Isn't that crazy?
Are way better.
Isn't that crazy?
They're way more real. They're way more accessible.
Even your relationship with God.
Exactly. Way less pretense. I'm coming at my faith and my understanding of my spirituality in a whole new freedom, in a whole new way. I'm not carrying anything for anybody. I'm not preparing anything for anybody. And that is a really, really cool, precious space.
Yeah. So
that I want people to be able to have. Like, so good. I mean, a guy can go on a sabbatical, but the only thing he's thinking on sabbatical is what he's going to come and preach.
Yeah. It's just hard.
Yeah.
But that's just the season that we've chosen. We've just chosen to leave that season behind and enter into this new season for us of like, what'd you call it?
What'd you call it?
I said joy, and you said it was...
Discovery. Discovery, joy, freedom.
Yeah. We're just having fun being and loving our life and like being able to be supportive and learn new things and be really open-handed with what we think and what we believe and learn new things and try.
But I think okay, so you sound like you're about to go bottom line summary, but I'm going to try it first because I could see you're jumping.
Well, I just want to throw in a point that like in this podcast, they're probably going to hear all these remnants of like being pastors for all these years and now being people that kind of think about God differently and about spirituality differently. And so that's going to be weaved in some. And so it's good that people have that context, I think.
Exactly. As they listen to more podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I was going to sum up. I feel like we're at a place of discovery, joy, freedom, really success. I feel successful. You feel very successful. And I think that one of the main reasons why is because we have always believed that we're better together.
Absolutely.
And we have always bet on us.
Yes.
And we have always done what we feel we needed to do to not just maintain, but to sow into and to build and double down on our most important relationship, and that's us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it hasn't been easy. And there's times when you wanted to kick me to the curb. But you didn't.
And there's sometimes when you're like, I can't stand
this woman. Get her out of my life.
But we made it, and we're still making it. And like,
and there's a lot of wisdom that comes through hard times and
all those lives, all those seasons. We've learned a lot of stuff.
We did hear a guy, I remember a long time ago, someone say you have marriages within your marriage.
Yes.
So think of it as different marriages, think of it as different seasons within your seasons. But the idea is very true that we have always come back to, I'm betting on us.
Yeah.
And we are going to be better together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Good.
I love you.
Love you.
Wait, babe, wait. How do we end this?
By saying thank you.
Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you. There's nothing more encouraging than you hitting that like button and commenting.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And I know there's more. You have a list. Might as well go down the list.
Right. Okay. Watch the video of this podcast on our Beautiful Steph YouTube channel or on our website where you can actually download transcripts and show notes of the episode. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
If today's episode made your together even better, tell someone.
Okay, now.
Right now.
Today.
Okay.
You can take one step.
It's just one step.
Toward the beautiful relationship you want in your life.
You got this.